Hi, everybody. It's Joe from Malarkey 365. So the other day, I had an interesting technical interview with someone over the internet, via Zoom, Teams, whatever. And I got the oddest feeling that I was talking to someone who wasn't alone. Let's talk about interviews in the age of AI. So if you're like me, once in a while you're asked to do a technical interview with someone who's applying for some kind of job, security, IT, whatever it might be. And the first thing you do is you see their resume, look it over, see the skill set, things like that, and then there's a pre-interview, and sooner or later you're asked to come in just to kind of see if the person is a good fit, knows what the job requires, has the skills necessary to do that job. Now, you look at someone's resume, and one thing you're going to see is a list of certifications. No one interviews without, no one goes to a technical position without having a resume that lists at least some technical certifications. And the resumes, they always look pretty good. I've been noticing, though, for the last year or so, that resumes are looking a little different these days. And what I mean by that is, we've always had other people writing resumes. That's fine. If you're not a good writer, then you have somebody kind of punch up your resume a little bit. But more and more resumes kind of took on the feeling of what we get out of an AI, a ChatGPT. And so I noticed that a lot of people are using some kind of AI to do their resumes. Okay, that's fine. But it's interesting, one resume I saw not too long ago, the certifications listed were, this, that, and the other thing, a lot of Microsoft certifications. And one of the certifications, I believe, was either Network Plus or A Plus, something like that, a general background certification. And so I was just kind of going down the list, and that one caught my eye because right next to it was a parentheses. And inside the parentheses, it said, or CISSP if a more managerial position. Words to that effect. What does that mean? Why would someone write that into their resume? Clearly they would not. Someone else or some other thing wrote that into their resume. Obviously, it was an AI-generated resume, and the AI was saying, "Well, you should maybe say you're a Network Plus, but if you're going for like a CISO job, then maybe you should go with a CISSP." That was the general gist of what was in that parentheses, and the interviewee, the person whose resume it was, just didn't notice that the AI had put that in there. So I caught it. Had a good chuckle, and I interviewed him anyway. They didn't really know what they claimed to know. That happens. But that was pretty obvious once I started the interview. I recently had an interview where, I'm used to seeing the resumes filled with AI generated, so that's fine. And now I'm used to seeing more certifications than I would like to see, actually, listed on a resume. And for anybody who's interviewing for a technical position, and anyone who's actually gotten certifications, it's not an easy thing to get a certification. Yes, I know. You can do a little bit of cheating. You can go to sites where you download the actual questions and answers for tests. I've seen those, and even that isn't easy. If you don't know something, seeing a list of questions and answers for a topic that you're unfamiliar with is not going to help you. There's no guarantee that you're going to pass that test. It's like not speaking Chinese or not speaking Russian or something like that, and then deciding, well, I'm going to get the questions and answers, and I'm going to go take this Russian test or this Chinese. It's not going to work. Yeah, you're going to get a few right, but but your brain doesn't work that way. We're not computers, right? So it's still hard. So when I see a list of, more than a dozen certifications, kind of alarm bells start to go off, and I start looking at them closely. Now, if there's certifications from like older technologies and someone's just adding them there to say, hey, I've been in this business for a while, so here's, I got a Windows Server 2008 certification, this, that, and the other thing. VMware, this, that's fine. Your current stuff, though, if there's too many of those, I start thinking, when does this person have time to actually do work? Are they just getting certified all the time? Because that's almost what it would take. So that's like a first kind of a bit of a red flag there. I see too many certifications. All right. Anyway, when you start an interview with somebody, you may do things different from me, but what I like to do is I'll look at their resume, I'll see what skills they have listed, and then I'll just ask about those in kind of a congenial way. I do stuff, they do stuff, and let's talk about the things that we do. And let me hear about your experience in doing this, and here's my troubles that I have with it. What do you think? I kind of go at it from that angle. I also wait and listen to what people are saying during the interview. A lot of people just start, spitting out things that they've done. They mention something. Well, that something becomes fair game. Now, let's talk a little bit about that. And very quickly, you can kind of figure out if someone has real experience in it, or if they've just Googled it up and they've kind of worked a little bit, studied up on it, but not really done it. So I see a lot of that, and that's fine. I'm not even saying that's a bad thing. If they can speak intelligently about a topic, great. I just want to know, are they going to be able to start doing what they're potentially going to get paid to do? All right, to the subject at hand. Recently, I had an interview where I asked this gentleman typical questions, subject matter questions. And the first time I asked him about a topic that I think he probably had it on his resume, he started saying, oh, that's a great question, Joe. In the industry, we got to be worried about the compliance and the blah, blah, blah. And he went through a bunch of stuff for about 20 seconds or so. And I'm like, yeah, okay, come and get to the answer of my question. And then after about 20, 25 seconds, he just started answering my question. So I'm like, oh, okay. That took a while to get to that, but all right. And he answered it very well. And so we come to another question, another topic. And then the second question I asked, same thing. 20 seconds or so of just vamping, just kind of regurgitating my question and talking about generalities, and then all of a sudden, boom, he's right in. It's like, somebody is in a manual transmission, and they get the clutch and they finally get in the gear, boom, he takes off. And it's, encyclopedic. And it kind of just immediately in my brain, I started figuring, is this guy alone in this room? Do I need to have him shine a camera around? And then I'm thinking, well, how would, be someone telling him this stuff? He's got an earpiece. What's going on here? That was a little weird. I'm like, all right, well, maybe this is just how he works. Third question comes by. And I remember this third question because it was a Microsoft question. It was about Defender for Office, Microsoft's email security part of Defender. And he had mentioned something about phishing, and I asked him, hey, what about the Microsoft, I see in your resume, because it was on his resume, I remember, anti-phishing policies. And I said, what do you think about how Microsoft has named anti-phishing policies and what they do? Because anti-phishing policies in Microsoft, other products, we'll call that anti-spoofing or anti-impersonation. Microsoft calls it anti-phishing. It's not a bad name, but it's not exactly descriptive of what it does. Their phishing policies are for impersonation. It deals with domain impersonation, spoofing, and also impersonations of names that look like other names that really aren't, and how Microsoft tries to prevent those kinds of emails from slipping through. So I had even forgotten about all the settings that are in there. I'm not looking at that every single day. So if you ask me about anti-phishing, I'd say, well, here's what the purpose is, and here's what you got to do for blah, blah, blah. But a few years back, Microsoft threw in a couple of extra things into a policy of anti-phishing policies for DMARC, verification. I think SPF is in there as well, and basically it says, well, if it doesn't pass DMARC, make it a hard fail and do this, that, or the other thing. It's not a typical thing people would remember and start talking about. Okay, they would just talk in generality. So I asked this person about the phishing. Same thing. 20 seconds of just vamping, and then boom, encyclopedic, starts running through all the settings, including DMARC and the other stuff. I'm like, hold on a second. And I remember I was talking to on another channel with another person who was on the call, and I'm like, I can't put my finger on it, but if I didn't know better, I'd say that this person was receiving real-time AI help. I just spitballing. I'm like, that's what I'm thinking. This is just weird. 20 seconds, and then he's encyclopedic on the answer. So finished the interview, and I have a couple more questions, but the same thing kept happening. And I'm like, there is just no way that it's not, this is not someone's quirkiness about how they answer a question. This person was killing time and then coming up with a full list of perfect knowledge. It's not going to happen, right? So I remember talking to the other person that was asking me to do the interview, and I'm like, well, here's what I think was maybe happening. And this person, before I even finished, they're like, oh, I just looked this up. And they sent me a link. And it was a link to an advertisement for a website called your AI interview assistant, something like that. It's a thing. You can buy it. You can buy an AI interview assistant, and that is, I'm guessing what this person was using. So that's a thing. That's a thing to look out for these days. So if you do technical interviews, if you haven't run into this yet, be wary of it. And that's the telltale sign is someone takes way too long to get to the answer. And then when they get to the answer, boy, it's way too detailed. That's the way it is. So those of you thinking about doing this, or if someone asks you about it, just say, well, they're going to be on to you probably if you try something like that. AI is not fast enough. You can't it can't even listen in and give you the answer fast enough. You're going to have to do some vamping, and maybe that's going to improve. Let's hope not, because that was tough. I almost wanted to say, well, from now on, we got to do interviews where someone stands against a wall where I can see all of them. I don't know how to do an interview, but it's, it makes things a little bit tougher. So I just figured I'd chime in today on that. So it was an interesting thing to discover that AI is now being used in interviews. So be wary of that. Do with that what you will. I don't really know what to tell you on how to defeat it, but you talk to somebody long enough, you can tell if they know what they're doing or not. And just look for that one telltale sign, the vamping for 20 seconds and the encyclopedic answer. That's it, everybody. Stay safe out there.